Hello, folks. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and I have another great show planned for us. We're going to be looking at, looking at cryptids and aliens tonight and having some fun. But first, let me go over here and do this. And let me show you artwork from my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs. Just a moment. Let me get this up here and stuff. And there. Just getting that right there. Now, let's go look at some of my artwork. Here is my extreme 90s cover. This cover I did harken back to the comic books of the 90s. Looks pretty good. It basically with the guns and all the muscular guys fighting each other in a giant, huge battle. Basically just making you have a lot of fun time and bringing the action to you. Where they're getting you into the action. Now, The Scumdogs, the name of my graphic novel, is a parody book. I parody the cartoons we all know and love when we were growing up, back in the 80s. Now, the Scumdogs themselves, or whether when we were kids and we were young and stuff like that, and long ago and stuff like that. Now, the Scumdogs, the name of my characters are, it's a parody book. I parody the cartoons we all know and love. And, the Scumdogs themselves, they're supervillains out to take over the world. See, the Scumdogs are superhuman monsters that compete in sporting events called the Scumdog Sports. It's sporting events held with superhuman monsters as the athletes. See, they are called scum and dogs because they trade in their humanity for power. They have themselves transformed into superhuman monsters for money. So they can go out and compete in these sporting events for fame and glory. They're called scum dogs for it. So you get the idea. They're not exactly the nicest guys around because they gave up their humanity because they wanted all that money. But what happens when they get banned from sports? Well, the scum dogs decide to take over the world. And with what they're capable of, they certainly can. You also look out for a hair metal doctor and Miss Breasty Melons, who are also Scumdogs. Now, Deathmug, the leader of the Scumdogs, is an arrogant dictator with an overblown ego who wants to rule the world. He's the purple guy with the metal mask over here, who's fighting his arch enemy, the guy with the pink pompadour hair over there, named Buick Starpoon. Deathmug is a parody of various villains from 80s cartoons and stuff like that. Particularly he's a parody of the villains from G.I. Joe and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, mainly because like Cobra Commander, the leader of Cobra, and Serpentor, the other leader of Cobra, he's got a metal mask like Cobra Commander. He's got gold on him like Serpentor, and he's purple like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Well, his archenemy, Buick Starpoon, he's a G.I. Joe parody. But he's also a parody of, and because he's a G.I. Joe parody, him and the rest of his team all have a military specialty. Well, let me get into this later. Now, Buick Starpoon is also a parody of the space opera kind of hero as well. Like James T. Kirk from Star Trek, Captain Kirk, or Buzz Lightyear, or Zach Brannigan and Buck Rogers, those kinds of characters. And because he's a G.I. Joe parody, his military specialty is he's a captain in the Space Forces. Now, the other members of Buick Starpoon's team are on this cover as well. This guy over here with the mohawk in the blue uniform, or maybe I should just say the guy over here with the mohawk, his name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's an army guy. All right. Well, this bald guy with the gun down here in the blue uniform, like that, his name is Beach Powder. His military specialty is that he's a Marine. Before he joined up with the Space Forces, he was a Marine. Well, this guy back here in the red uniform driving that vehicle and basically coming at these guys, his name is Blast Tank. His military specialty is that he's a heavy vehicle specialist, a tanker. Looks pretty good, this cover, huh? Now, this is one of 3 different variant covers you'll be able to back when my Indiegogo goes live. Okay? Now, let me go over here and show you some more artwork and artwork and stuff. Here we have Miss Breasty Melons. She's another member of the Wild Rangers. That's the name of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces. Oh, I should also explain Buick Starpoon. He's a parody of the arrogant military type of character. You know, the kinds of military types that always think they're right no matter what, with an overblown ego. He's one of the reasons why he doesn't like Death Mug. They both are just intolerable. But we also have Girl Friday here, who's his second in command. She was put on the Wild Rangers because, well, because while the Wild Rangers fight the scum dogs every day and save the universe, they're just highly destructive idiots. But and to basically head off any more destruction that they were causing, her superiors in the Space Forces put Girl Friday on, under Buick Starpoon and basically made him second command. She's basically there to babysit the team and basically see that they get the job done. And she hates her job because she thinks her career in the military is over. That's Girl Friday. By the way, folks, hit that like button for me, as well as please go share this. Hit that like button for me, and it helps me fight the algorithm and stuff like that, as well as hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications. And please share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Here we have Death Mug's henchmen, because in all 80s cartoons, the main villain of the cartoon would have henchmen. And these are my henchmen, and there are the blue guy. Well, the blue. Let's see down here. The pink guy down here is Sloppy, and the blue guy with the top hat is Murdermouth. They're a parody of every henchman from an 80s cartoon, and they're just going to be fun as hell to read. Now, there are a couple of idiots that are too stupid to do anything right. They just destroy everything they touch, and they just have a great time doing it. That's right here and stuff like that. Now let's look at Hair Metal Doctor. Hair Metal Doctor is a parody of Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe, a mad scientist. But unlike him, my mad scientist here has been crossed over with a hair metal musician because I thought that'd be awesome to have as a villain. He thinks of all the machines the scumdogs use to try and take over the world. He does it while rocking out the hair metal. That's Hair Metal Doctor. He does it while rocking out to hair metal. Now, over here we have Miss Breasty Melons. Miss Breasty Melons is a parody of the Baroness from G.I. Joe. But unlike the Baroness, she's a party girl who only wants to have fun. She only became a villain to have fun. Now the Hair Metal Doctor pinup and the Miss Breasty Melons pinup will be included with other pinups in my graphic novel for you to buy. But I will also get these pinups out to you on t-shirts from Crypto Fashion as soon as I'm able to make them, okay? There, I looked at this, did that there. Now, let me go over here. Exit out of these, and we'll look at some more UFO and cryptids tonight and having some fun. Have you hit that like button for me? Not doing too bad. Now, let's go look at some weird stories, articles, and stuff. Yesterday, we had some fun and stuff like that. Now, Now, let maybe look at some particularly weird cryptids tonight. Oh, yeah. I should also look at Indiegogo real quick and basically do something right there. Nightmare Theater has made $28,118. It's still funding in demand on Indiegogo, so it's doing well. The Blue Bombshell has made $12,675. It's still got 24 days left. It looks like one hell of a great-looking book. Now, it's a sexy sex comedy, adults only. The Blue Bombshell. You can back this book for, 3 different covers. And you can get it for $25. I guess there's only 2 covers, A and B. You can get all covers for $25. That's pretty good. Oh, wait a minute. I guess there is cover A, cover B, cover C. Cover C adult variant. There's 3 covers, but it's an adult variant where you can have a bunch of fun with nudity. And there's another card. The Blue Bombshell must face up against your most villainous enemies, including Pink Pussy Cat. Not bad here. Good artwork. I like what I'm seeing here. Looks pretty good. The artwork looks pretty good. Like what I'm seeing here. The blue bombshell is in all-out action as she faces off against her deadliest enemies while trying to keep her top on. It's scantily clad adventure as the blue bombshell indestructible rack is always busting at the seams. This is a 48-page full-color comic with adult content and nudity, so adults only. I like what I'm seeing here, and that's good. You have a variety of different perks and stuff like that you can back, and they all look pretty good. That's the blue bombshell. I'm not so sure I want to show off this this trailer here, but the blue bombshell looks good. Mainly because I don't want I want this stream to be stay profitable. Let's go look at some other stuff. Battle Mini Nickel Bomb. 2 is standard, has basically 28 days left. It's already made $3,207. Let's see. Alien Alamo has made $85,560 or over that and stuff like that. So that's doing good. Stomp 2 comic book is still in demand. It's made $5,749. That's also good. Now, maybe let's go over here to see if we can get any other books to come up. The Shredder, a book with a prequel book with the Shredder, has made $4,281 with 58 days left. Downcast 3 has made $29,580. Not doing too bad. Cape Fear here, and Fear of Gods and Monsters. I mean, in the book in Fear of Gods and Monsters. Looks pretty good. You can back this book for, well, $20 USD. Signed, sealed, and delivered, $16. You have other books here. Right. Or whether it's supposed that basically the books are called Cape Fear, and this is the In Fear of Gods and Monsters campaign. Or something like that. Fear of the Unknown, $20 USD, not bad. Okay. Looks good. Looks good. Maybe I should tell you a bit about this book, but you can see it's pretty much a horror book, and it looks good. Let's move on to something else. Remember, folks, hit that like button for me because it helps me fight the algorithm. So what do I look at first? Maybe go over here. Let's see if there are any new articles up here on, well, Venoms and stuff like that. Or should I say fan and monsters? Looks like it's taking a bit. Tonight, we're going to be looking at, well, UFO and cryptid stories and having fun. Just looking at various stories and like that and stuff like that. Anything that piques our interest, we're going to be looking at. Maybe I should also do a stream where I talk about one kind of story as well. Here we do we go up there or not? June 24th, 2021. Okay, an interesting article in July 1974 issue of the National Star, New York City. Roger Langley of UFO nuts landed, on Earth. On how the world's then foremost authority in UFO, Dr. Hynek, J. Allen, came to the conclusion that UFOs, for the most part, were manned vehicles from other planets, and that in many cases involving the actual landing of UFOs, beings have been seen on board the ships, disembarking from them or embarking into them. Hynek is an astrophysicist from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. First became involved in UFO investigations when he was hired by the Air Force back in 1947 as a scientific consultant to investigate the phenomenon from under the project. From a project and stuff, 47 to 49. Project Grudge from 1950 to 51, and later Project Blue Book 52 to 69. In all the time that he was looking into UFOs on behalf of the United States Air Force, Hynek investigated more than 12,000 UFO landings. And in 300 of these cases, beings or creatures were reported in or around the craft. In some of the more outstanding cases looked into Hynek, the fishermen in Pensacola who swore that they were taken aboard a spaceship examined by silvery-skinned creatures with no eyes. A police chief in Alabama, following a radio call to check out a possible flying saucer landing, took photos of 6-foot being in a metallic suit who ran off faster than the chief's own police cruiser could possibly pursue it. And an engineer who photographed an alleged spaceman emerging from a flying saucer. Priest in Papua New Guinea, who described in detail UFO landing and some humanoids working on the top deck of the saucer-shaped craft. Until the closure of the Project Blue Book, 1969, Hynek was bound to follow the Air Force directives to debunk the credibility of UFOs. On every occasion, in 1974, as an independent scientific investigator, he was no longer bound by these restrictions. To these astrophysicists, it was beyond reason to dismiss all of these UFO reports as lies, practical jokes, hallucinations, or mad delusions, as the honchos of the Air Force had insisted that he do when he worked on the various UFO projects with them. Back in October 73, Hynek was drawn at Pensacola in less than 2 days from the time that the 2 fishermen had reported their examination by strange creatures aboard a flying saucer. It was a terrifying experience for the men. Hynek told National Star reporter Langley, adding that they were very shaken, neither of these men, and had any sort of reputation as tellers of tall tales. I was impressed with their general sincerity. The general attitude in the town was that Charles said it happened, it probably happened. I honestly believe that they believed that it happened. It might have been some sort of religious experience, something akin to that. Experience, huh? A religious experience. Of course, since Hynek did not outright dismiss the 2 gentlemen as kooks upon hearing of their encounter, it is not hard to see why he would stand head and toes above other UFO investigators of his time who were quick to cast aspersions on the credibility of the witnesses while ignoring the details of the actual UFO report. Further discussing UFO nuts, flying saucer, or commencing humanoid like aliens, Hynek reinforced his objective stance by declaring, I would gladly admit this part. I could, without offense to scientific concordance, virtually one may not omit the data simply because they may not be to one's liking or in line with one's notions. We bulk in reports about occupants, even though we may be willing to listen attentively to accounts of other UFO encounters. Why should a report of a car stopped on the highway by a blinding light from a known craft be any different in essential strangeness or absurdity from one of a craft upon which 2 or 3 little eminent creatures descend? There's no logical reason, yet I confess, sharing a prejudice that is hard to explain, is that encounters with eminent beings, possibly without intelligence, are of a different order than ours, gives a new dimension to our avarice fear of the unknown. Another thing, the humanoids seem to be able to breathe our air, to adapt to our air pressure and gravity with little difficulty. Something seems terribly wrong about that. Would imply that they must be a form or place on the planet very much like our own, perhaps our own. How are they robots needing to adapt to our environment? Our commissioners recoil at the very idea of humanoids and leads to much banter and ridicule and jokes about little green men. They tend to throw the whole UFO concept into dispute. UFOs could exist, but humanoids? You gotta be kidding me, right? Yes, humanoids. Yeah. All reporters of UFOs truly sick. UFOs, huh? They all affected by some strange virus that does not attack sensible people. It would be helpful, one feels, if we could demonstrate that reports of UFOs landing differ systematically from UFO science. Then we could, with some comfort, dismiss them. But they don't, except that the relative number of cases with more than one witness is somewhat less. There are not as many observers having any degree of technical training. There are no pilots or traffic controllers, radar operators, traffic controllers, or scientists who have reported humanoids according to my records. Reports of air traffic controllers or scientists who have reported humanoids according to my records. There are, however, people holding other types of responsible positions: clergymen, policemen, electronics engineers, bank directors, military men. I think I've heard of a few scientists seeing humanoids, military men, miners, railroad engineer, medical doctors. clearly is not only kooks who report humanoids. Indeed, I do not know of a report of this kind to have come from a person demonstrated of demonstrated mental imbalance. To the fisherman from Pensacola, Hynek explained, when I got there, 48 hours of it happening, Charlie Hankinson, the older of the two men, was still in a state of shock. He was a shanking man, there was no doubt about it. Who could blame Hankinson or anyone else undergoing such a traumatic experience? After Hynek christening of the two, the following is a summary of the events that transpired with Hankinson and Parker. Well, during the fateful night of 11th October 1973, the 11th of 1973, on the date of the event, Charles Higginson, a 32-year-old, and his friend was 19 years old. They were both workers of the Walker shipyards in Pensacola. Higginson was a foreman. Both of the men had excellent work records. Neither was known to be a heavy drinker, and after work hours around 7 p.m., the men cited fishing at the Pensacola River off an old pier of the West Bank. No sooner had they reached the desired location that they noticed a strange aircraft up in the sky. That seemed to be emitting a bluish haze. The object began moving closer until it was hovering about 3 or 4 feet above the water. Hexton claims their three, whatever they were, came out either floating or walking, carries us into their ship. The beings kept us about 20 minutes, photographed us, and then took us back to the pier. The only sound they made was buzzing, humming sounds they left in a flash. Fishermen described the entities being eyeless, silver-skinned humanoids. Each of the beings had a slit for a mouth and 3 carrot-like protrusions instead of a nose and ears. Parker says that he fainted when he first espied 3 humanoid creatures climbing out of their spacecraft, and he did not regain consciousness until he had been released back into the pier that night after the release by the aliens. They reported the incidents of Captain Glenn Ryder, Pensacola Sheriff's Department. Ryder questioned the men. At first, he thought they were playing some kind of joke on him. The captain called in some other deputies on duty that night into the system and further questioning the UFO experience, who had been separated, being placed in different rooms. We did everything we knew to break their stories, maintained Ryder, but both of their stories fit. If they were lying to me, they should be in Hollywood. When Hynek arrived in Pensacola, he immediately went to the site of the fisherman's UFO experience, see if he could find any physical evidence of the encounter. I was hoping to find some disturbed ground, some broken tree branches, or something like that, said that scientist. More specific as to what that something might be, Hynek explained that something would indicate something physical. Nuts and bolts had been there. I didn't find anything. The whole thing had a sort of dreamlike quality. No, dreamlike isn't quite correct. The incoherent would be better. I can think of no reason why these 2 men in rural Mississippi would fabricate a story. They certainly were not going to gain anything from it. They get some notoriety, but they did not seem to be enjoying the attention. I don't understand the Southern ways and mentality, but they struck me as extremely simple folk. Where without guile, Charlie just told me the story in a very unassuming way. I would characterize this case not as good as some of the other cases I have come across. It gained a national prominence because of the abduction, but it must be taken in the context of the wave of cases were reported around that time. The scientists and the staff at the Center of UFO Studies, a nonprofit organization established in Chicago, Illinois in 1973 by Hynek with himself as director, had about 1,000 or so cases, going on that period. That was just one of them. But it is the only case that we heard of that involved actual creatures. Charles Higginson kept asking us, do you think they are coming back again? What do they want? Why did they pick me? He said, why did they pick us, huh? He said, in all sincerity, I will say, what did they want, huh? I will say, and I'll stick to it. Yeah. Those guys were scared as hell. It was just as if they had been in a very gory automobile accident, a very traumatic experience that you're not capable of calmly describing all the detail. Your conscious mind tends to block out large parts of it, and this is exactly the impression I got from these 2 guys. They had undergone such a shocking thing that they could not put into words. Happened to them. The thing that happened to them definitely affected their rationality. The sheriff's deputies did take statements from Higginson and Parker and then left them together in a room with a hidden tape recorder, thereby attempting to check out the veracity of their story. That tape made them, when Charles and Calvin thought they were alone, was, I think, one of the most convincing things to me, said Hynek, to hear them talk to each other. The experienced UFO investigator, it was obvious that there was no sign of collusion. When Charlie left the room, one could hear Calvin praying to himself, saying things like, "Oh God, it's awful. Hard to believe I know there was a God up there. Why did this happen to me?" It was a real experience for them, but I can't offer assured evidence that it was a real solid or physical thing. The Pensacola case also involved hypnosis. Dr. James Harder, a scientific consultant in the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization, a civilian UFO research group operating out of Tucson, arrived on the scene at the request of Hynek. Harder believes that being an engineer at the University of California at Berkeley was also an expert hypnosist and had previously assisted Hynek in several other UFO investigations. Harder hypnotized both the men and was satisfied with their accounts of the incident checked out. The hypnotism added credence to their stories, asserted Hynek, noting that Dr. Harder was still quite resourceful in getting Charlie to describe his only birthday parties and other pleasant experiences from his past life. But whenever he approached the UFO experience itself, Harder would say, "Well, now, Charlie, you're not going to be disturbed. Everything is going to be fine. Be calm. Now tell me about the two men who were fishing the other day on Pensacola River." Suddenly a tension would develop in Charlie's body and sweat could break out on his forehead. It was pretty clear that whatever it was, he did not want to relive that experience. The fact that they would not talk about that experience while hypnotized strengthened my belief that for them, they'd had an extremely traumatic experience of whatever it was. Northwestern University, Hynek served as director of the Larden Director of Research Center, as the chair of the astronomy department. So everything he had to say about UFOs carried quite a bit of weight and influences circles. The fact that he placed so much importance on the UFO signs collected by the Project Blue Book when he served as the government project scientific consultant only served to heighten the credibility of these reports. During one of these busiest years at Blue Book, Hynek recalled that out of the thousands of UFO sightings that were reported that year, 48 of the cases involved landings, in which there were 12 cases where humanoids were sighted coming out of going into landed objects, usually the typical saucer-shaped craft. And apart from the official Air Force investigations that year, Hynek tailored 223 other humanoid cases coming from various areas of the world just from the fleet files of one private UFO group. But in return to the Blue Book findings, Hynek pointed out that 2 of the 48 landings were attributed to hallucinations. 6 were ascribed to the somewhat more vague term psychological. 2 more were ascribed to an unreliable report, which in Blue Book terminology really means crazy. 6 were ascribed to hoaxers, but on slim evidence, the majority was attributed to insufficient data, a favorite term for the Blue Book when it appeared that it would be too much trouble to acquire additional data. Generally, there was little to no follow-up in these cases. There were 9 cases of reported landings of unknown craft, yet no attempt was made at assertion further facts. The majority of reported cases that involved contact with humanoids, outer space, and earthlings, the guy lamented that they were not given sufficiently scientific consideration because there was only one individual UFO experiencer. One of the more highly touted cases referred to often by Hynek was that of a police officer named Herbert Schimmer, Ashland, Nebraska. Schimmer insisted he had a close encounter with aliens who took him aboard their flying saucer and even demonstrated to him how it functions. The Schimmer encounter took place on December 1967, when a saucer-like object landed on or hovered slightly above the highway, some feet in front of them. The police officer watched the UFO and then reported that it took off at high speed, but when Schimmer filed his report, there were 20 minutes that he could not account for, no matter how hard he racked his brain. Dr. R. Leo Sprinkle, a professor of psychology at the University of Wyoming, who was also a state-certified hypnotist, was called in to examine the police officer. Incidentally, Dr. Sprinkle wrote the introduction to my first book of the Venus Rising series, Venus Rising, history of this, second planet, Ultra, West Virginia, headline book 2015, for which I am eternally grateful. The doctor put Shimmer under, hypnosis. The Nebraska police officer relived his experience until he was hypnotized. The guy had no idea what had happened for 20 minutes of his life, but after the session with Dr. Sminkle, the officer understood that he had actually been aboard an alien spaceship. Hynek was impressed with the Shimmer case, but like so many others, this one involved only one experiencer. Respect to Shimmer. Hynek told National Star reporter Roger Langley that Officer Shimmer was hypnotized. He told the fascinating story, but how does an observer assess the reality of the situation? The man is not lying. For him, it was a very real experience. But what actually happened that night? Was it real, nuts and bolts thing that you can see, or was it some strange paranormal thing? In a single witness case such as this, what can an investigator really do? If you told me you had a dream about purple peach trees last night, how could I substantiate it or prove it? This is the same problem with one witness cases. Another case that attracted Hynek's personal interest took place in the States on April 24th, 1964. It also involved a law enforcement officer and New Mexico Highway Patrol Sergeant Lonnie Zamora. Interesting. On 24th of 1964, also involved a law enforcement officer named Lonnie. Officer at New Mexico Highway Patrol Sergeant Lonnie. This was the first case that Hynek investigated in that part of the States, in the land of enchantment, concerned the highway patrolman's encounter with an egg-shaped UFO that landed a little distance off the main state route in the vicinity of his hometown of Socorro. Officer Lonnie here was the first about to wrap it up for the day. It was 5:45 p.m. and his shift was about to end in 15 minutes. Out of the blue, it is a slender speeder raced by Zamora's position, moving like a bat out of hell. The patrolman was about to chase the speedster when suddenly there was a loud explosion coming from his rear. Also, when Zamora was on Lonnie, the first fierce clapping noise, he turned around just in time to catch sight of an eerie light blue flash of light that washed over him, the patrol car and the surrounding desert strawberry. Zamora followed in his patrol car in a dirt path to a small shack about 200 feet back from the highway. Once the blue flash of the explosion emanated, that's when they spotted the source of the commotion, a shiny shiny egg-shaped object seen from the sky with a smokeless blue and orange flame emitting from its underside. The officer described the object as resembling a car turned upside down, standing on its radiator trunk. At this point, Zamora, out of the vehicle, started to approach the now landed object. Within 100 feet or foot. Two passengers, white overalls, had disembarked from the strange object. One of these persons, noted the highway patrolman, seemed to turn and look straight at my car and seemed to quickly jump somewhat. Patrolman Lonnie described the UFO occupant as normal in shape, but possibly they were small adults or large kids. Officer radioed for backup, but continued to keep his distance from the object and the beings that descended from it. The oval-shaped object had no visible windows or even the seams of a doorway. It had set upon a girder-like legs. It was marked with a red insignia. It was about 2.5 feet wide. The UFO occupants, on the other hand, were not going to remain in the area for long. And so far as the armed patrolman was not going to remain in the area for long, observing their activities. Yeah. In the next 5 minutes, the two aliens quickly terminated their activities. They returned to their craft and took off. Lonnie witnessed the UFO quickly ascend and then move over to a mountain in the distance, where it quickly sped out of sight, but not out of mind. Just a few minutes after the aliens' departure, fellow officer Sergeant Sam of the New Mexico State Police arrived at the scene in response to Lonnie's radio call for backup. Officer Sam, while he did not see the object, did observe the still smoldering brush the UFO had landed and taken off. He also noted the burn marks and four shaped depressions pushed into the ground where the object had rested. These impressions were between 1 and 2 inches deep, and each one measured 18 inches in length. Well, that's interesting. One of the chief skeptics of the era, the editor of Aviation Space Technology magazine op-ed that Lonnie had simply made up the whole story in order to increase tourism in the area. However, in a report submitted to the Central Intelligence Agency by the then director of the Air Force Project Blue Book, Major Hector, the highest military authority in the UFO phenomenon, declared that there is no doubt that Lonnie saw an object which left quite an impression on him. There is also no question about Lonnie's reliability. He is a serious officer, a pillar of the church, and a man well versed in recognizing airborne vehicles in the area. He was puzzled. He saw, and frankly, so are we. Keep in mind that Blue Book director came to these conclusions based on the field research out of New Mexico conducted by Dr. Hynek. All right. The revelation. So here's the guy. What the guy looked like. Here's the man. This is what I saw. Okay. The revelation of Hynek's involvement. The revelation of the involvement in the Lonnie case was leaked the 30th April 1964 edition of the news. 30th April 64 edition of the New Sun newspaper, Hobbs, New Mexico. Despite the official pronunciation by Project Blue Book personnel that there was no evidence linking UFOs to extraterrestrial spaceships, the Air Force's overwhelming interest in the Socorro, New Mexico landing incident suggested otherwise. That is interesting as well. The genie was out of the bottle, so to speak, and getting him back in was not going to be an easy task. Looking back in the Lonnie encounter, Hynek informed journalist Langley of the National Star that I visited the site several days after the actual incident and found landing marks and charred plants near where Zamora, that's Lonnie here, said the spacecraft had landed. Although there were other reported witnesses in the UFO area, only the only Officer Lonnie, like Officer Schemer, the other guy, officer and stuff like that, was in a position of seeing the occupants. At first, I tried to shake his story, but I couldn't. I was impressed. Officer Schemer, isn't that the other guy we were looking at? Let me go back over here. His name Herbert. Herbert. That's the guy's name. All right. Officer Herbert and stuff was in position of the occupants. I was impressed by the high regard to which Lonnie was held by his fellow officers. Hynek noted that Lonnie, like other people who claimed to have had contact experiences with seemingly extraterrestrial beings associated with UFOs, remained rock-ribbed in their belief that their encounter was real. 2 years prior to the interview with Langley, with the guy, Hynek had just come out with a book, UFO Experience, Chicago, Illinois, Henry Rinsey, 72, in which he provided extensive background information on some of the more prominent cases he had investigated in his role as a scientific consultant to the Air Force for 20 years. The reason I called my book The UFO Experience, said Hynek, was that after 20 years or so with the Air Force, questioned many hundreds of people, and by the large, these people were convinced they had an actual experience. They were puzzled. They tried to explain to themselves by some logical way at first, and couldn't. Time and time again, they were very disappointed when I couldn't give them an explanation. They had sort of the attitude, you're not from the Air Force. You're supposed to know about these things. You're from, and when I said, like being part of the Air Force would basically give them privies to alien or basically ultra-terrestrial creatures and stuff like that. And when I said, well, look, puzzled as you are, I don't know what it was, they were really genuinely quite disappointed. While Hynek wished he could have done more to assure the anxious and inquiring minds of these UFO experiencers, he soon realized that he was faced with the challenge of overcoming formidable mental blocks these experiencers had built around themselves based on the deep-seated and often paranoid belief systems they were carrying around in life like so many unnecessary baggage. Hynek explained, I had a student in Northwestern who did a term paper on this very question. He sent out 100 questionnaires to people who had UFO experiences at least 5 years before. The questionnaires ran something like this. Now, after 5 years, what do you think? Are you still puzzled? Have you found an explanation? Do you still talk about it? He got some interesting results. He got about 40% return, which is good for a questionnaire, but with only one exception. Everyone was still puzzled. They did not honestly know what they had seen, yet their belief in what they had seen remained unshaken. We are very glib about what is real. when the angel Gabriel appeared to the Virgin Mary and said that things were going to happen, was that real? Was it physically real? It was an experience. And when people have a religious experience of one sort or another, well, it's real to them. But maybe what we call real isn't the complete story. Maybe there are other dimensions to reality that we do not appreciate. I know humanoid cases are more spectacular, but they simply have a lower credibility than others do. I don't know exactly why that is so. Maybe solid citizens who have an experience like that could not report it, whereas they might be willing to report something that is less bizarre. One just never knows what humanoid reports, whether the creature actually produced an image of the witnesses written or whatever it was, is just plain first-class hallucination. Only when you have cases when there was been damage on the ground do you have something solid and physical to go on. Okay, that was an interesting little story we read there. Had some fun right there and stuff. Let's see. All right. I'm trying to see any other ones here and stuff like other stories and stuff like that. Let me go down here. I could go over here, but maybe we'll look at some other stuff now. By the way, folks, if you hit that like button for me, ooh, not bad. If you have not yet, folks, please do hit that like button. I love to talk with you guys. Love to hear from your ideas on this. I mean, especially what we've been looking at right now. All right. Let me do this right here. Sorry. Let me do this over here. Here we are. Now, I did say I was going to look at cryptid stories, and we did look at a cryptid story right here with what they were talking about. Certainly sounds like a cryptid story. Yes, it was alien humanoids, but they still count as cryptids. So, if you have any ideas what you would like me to look at, I'll look at it as well. So, let's see. Like this. What to look at next? Maybe go over here. Maybe do this. Aliens, bizarre, invisible, reptilian tech. That's all right. Maybe go down here a bit. Todoans, miracle created by super intelligences. Disturbing alien abduction encounter. All right. All right. Let's get in here. Case of alien abduction that became a witch trial. Maybe I'll look at that, or maybe I won't. The A70 incident about alien abduction on a Scottish road. Or maybe I should just go over here and look at. I can't look at just a straight up cryptid case right now, so maybe I'll just look at that. Let's try this. All right, a giant 5 from around the world. There was one paranormal mystery. There's usually a second too. Ancient stones, mysterious connections, and strange creatures. Maybe. Britain's Bigfoot or that's mysterious man-like filmed in man-like thing. Well, he's man-like thing, huh? Okay, maybe not. Birth, spontaneous vanishing of Roman prophet, magical, mysterious, and some monsters of the royal right stones. That is something, isn't it? Let's go check out, maybe do this. Stone. Magical mysteries, sometimes mysterious prints of the royal right stones. German Stonehenge, home to brutal human sacrifices. All right. Ancient Ukrainian burial mound with Stonehenge-like structure. Maybe. I'd say strange mystery of the mystical cinematic cattle cult that predates Stonehenge. Monuments in society. Cattle cult, huh? All right. Hundreds of stone tools dating back a million years found in gold mine. Strange cases of stone throwing Bigfoot. Maybe. The Strange Mystery of the Georgia Guidestones. Let me see. Then the mysterious stone balls have shook him like this. High level of strangeness. Stonehenge and its high level of strangeness I could look at. Stone explains how to search for a Stone Age. Some Welsh citizens want Stonehenge stones returned and reassembled in wells. Right. First erected in Wales. More proof Stonehenge is a second-hand monument first erected in Wales. Maybe they are. Ancient Yellowstone, at least 50 million years old. Maybe just a bit further. Ancient stones, mysterious connections, and strange creatures. Yeah, I think I'll just look at this one. Looks like it has cryptids in it. Strange beasts. Depends how long this article is. Today, I'm going to share with you a strange story of a small connection of ancient stones in Kent, England. They are known as Kit's Cordy House. England's heritage says of them, Kit's Cordy's house and its neighbor, Little Kit's Cordy's house, are the remains of two monolithic dolmen burial chambers. Kit's Cordy's the larger of the two monuments, with three upright and a massive capstone, while the smaller Little Kit's Cordy, also known as the Countless Stones, is now a jumble of things. Although the origins of their names are unknown, what is certain is that long barrows, long places like this, such as these, were initially constructed during the early Neolithic period, act as communal burial sites. Okay. Kit Cordy believed it to have been constructed around 44,000 BC and was originally part of a long burial mound. However, over the course of thousands of years, the surrounding fields, including the burial mound, were severely damaged by plowings and other agricultural activities. For years, the stone structure was viewed as a more local curiosity. It was even erroneously associated with the Celts, but the Victorian era heralded a new appreciation for the ancient past, and with it, a growing desire to decipher the meaning of the mysterious megaliths dot the British landscape. Like so many areas of the UK, ancient stones in the midst of C. Cody's house is steeped in weirdness. As you'll now see, Neil Arnold, a good friend of mine, someone who has spent a lot of time investigating Kit Cody's house and who knows all about the same weirdness. Indeed, the strangeness is almost beyond. Interesting. Very interesting. What do you think about this, folks? Very, very interesting. Let's see. Neil Arnold is a good friend of mine. Yeah, Neil Arnold, a good friend of mine, and someone who has spent a lot of time investigating Kit's City House, and who knows all about that same weirdness. Indeed, the strangeness is almost beyond strangeness. For example, you'll soon see there have been sightings at the old stones of what can only be described as ancient primitive people. Here's what it looks like, this little thing here. All right. In January 2012, Neil told me that on night August 24th of the previous year, 2011, he was taking two women and their boyfriends on a private walk of Blue Hill, Kent. Let me go over here. Javen Palmer, are you going to look at the UAP map report tomorrow? I like to. I really do. Javen Palmer, and thank you for checking into the Scumdog's Kennel. Basically, there are it looks like it very interesting, doesn't it, folks? What was that? What's happening? January 12th, like that. I was taking and their private walk, doing that, and he was walking around the area when amazing and unsettling events erupted. As Neil recalls, he was about 9:30 at night, pitch black, when we passed the Kit's City Cordy house, Kit's house stones, and headed into a dark corner of woodland. I was about to tell them about a man-beast sighting and had my back to the woods when they all screamed in tandem. It was a funny seeing two grown men turn white as a ghost. They all started that about 20 yards behind me in the woods. A tall, dark, muscular figure had run through the woods and vanished. I never saw this because, as I said, my back was to the wood. They all frantically shone torches, but there was nothing. When it comes to trying to ascertain the true nature of the British Bigfoot, wild man encounters, which is deeply controversial and difficult task at the very best of times. The theories are as to wide and varied as they are controversial and thought-provoking, but without doubt one of the most engaging of all scenarios explains this undeniably nationwide. Ancient conundrum comes from Neil. Always wondered what type of manifestation these UK wildmen could be. Perhaps tulpas. Autumn of 2011, a psychic lady who I know as a friend and who I trust don't often have any interest in psychics, accompanied me to Blue Bell Hill, which is a very haunted village in Kent, a few miles short of the town. Maidstone, I knew of several obscure man-beast reports in the area, which she knew nothing about. I took her to one particular spot near some ancient stones, hoping she'd pick up on a ghostly presence, and she said she'd felt nothing whatsoever, but she did state quite categorically that a few years previous, around 2003, she'd had a bizarre encounter in the area one night. The story told to the guy is that she had visited Kit's Cordy house with a group of fellow psychics. They were over on one side of the field which harbors the stones, and she was in another area when she noticed someone walking towards her a few hundred yards away. The figure seemed to be striding rather aggressively and was coming from the direction of a thicket which runs alongside the field. There was no normal human or modern-day standards, however, as Neil's following words make it accurately and brilliantly clear. The woman whose name is Corian stated that from a distance the figure appeared huge in build and covered in hair, and she sensed it was not real but gave off an air of malevolence. The figure marched towards her, and she could see it had long hair and a beard covering most of its face. The hulking figure was taller than 6 feet and to have a loincloth around its waist and furry boots. No one else saw this figure, and I was intrigued as I knew that in the past several witnesses had come forward to say they'd seen similar figures in woods within miles of Blue Bill Hill. Should you ever be in the area, I would recommend you take a look at Casey's house. You might want to be in the area to look at what this is. Okay, interesting story right there. Had some fun. Coming to the end of this live stream. Interesting. Very interesting. We got a few more minutes. I don't want to go into too long an article for a bit more and stuff, but I don't mind looking at some other stuff. Let's see. Let's see. Anything down here we can look at real quick for a quick story, or maybe we'll talk about what we saw, or maybe we can just look at some more stories. But interesting stories we've been reading tonight, huh, folks? Bigfoot, stones, aliens, abductions, and stuff like that. People encountering weird things. And just goes to show you what has been going on in the world. What has gone. Just what is happening and stuff. Yeah, what has gone on before. And that sort of thing. The sort of things that happen or have happened. Let's see. I would like to think of a few things to say here, but yeah. What can I really say? It's all highly fun. What could you really say about all of this? Just that this is all very interesting. I mean, all these things do happen, and they have happened and keep happening, or have happened and stuff. Trying to think of an idea here, what to read, like that. I mean, what is it that people actually experience with this stuff? This woman actually saw something that looked like something we don't quite understand. But she says that she saw it. Other people have seen humanoid-looking alien creatures. And a lot of people have a lot of trouble believing that. And yet people have seen UFOs. So it's easier to believe in alien spacecraft than it is looking at a humanoid alien creature. Is that they expect these creatures to look like anything else? Is it the fact they believe that what they've been taught since they were children, that we've evolved on this planet and stuff like that, and that they think that aliens can't cross the great distances through space, that they think that there's no way that aliens would look human. Don't know. Either way, it's very, very fun. I mean, these things do happen and stuff, so there's that. I mean, I can't think of a few other things to say about this, but hey, people see this stuff and they have no idea what to do with it. These people who saw this stuff remain saying that they did see these things, but they just can't say that what exactly they saw was what they can't really explain what they really saw. They just saw these things. And when they saw humanoid creatures, they definitely saw that, but they don't know really what it was. To them, it was like an experience that was beyond anything they ever experienced before. So we have to say that as well. Well, why? Why would seeing something like that be like a religious experience for people? Maybe because maybe it was a religious experience. Maybe these things are angels, is what they really saw. You could explain why people come off like that. It definitely seems to come off as something. So we got that as well to consider. But people keep seeing these things or have seen them. What else to say? Well, maybe I should start doing this. Remember, folks, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. Remember that there's misspelled. Make sure you're still subscribed and stuff like that, as well as as well as hit that bell for me. Please hit that like button for me. It helps me fight the algorithm. And please hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications. As well as leave some comments down below. I love to hear from you guys. And please go share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. As well as please go over to rumble.com and subscribe to my Rumble channel. The name of my Rumble channel is Comic Freak. And please go over to BitChute and subscribe to my BitChute channel. The name of my BitChute channel is Comic Freak. As well as please go over and subscribe to Stitched Together Picks. Stitched Together Picks is hosted by the Maniacal Cinephile. Well, it's hosted by a great host. Stitched Together Picks does reviews of movies, and you're going to love his reviews of movies because he plays his character with a split personality disorder, and it's just so much fun to watch. You're not getting one character, you're just getting a whole bunch of fun. Go and subscribe to Stitched Together Picks. All right, what else did it say? Yeah. Also, please go over and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. Creepy Little Book is like the Art Bell radio show. He does little videos. He does little videos talking about strange things, but he also does live streams every night. He does live streams on weekdays at 12:30 a.m. and on weekends at 10 o'clock p.m. You'll learn so much from watching his live streams. He talks about ghosts and aliens. You learn about such weird things. It's just so much fun to watch. So there's that as well. Also, folks, let's see here. Anything else to say? Yeah. Remember, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock p.m. or 11 o'clock p.m. for another live stream. So be sure to come back again then. Now, I did that and stuff like that. That's pretty good. Let's see. We had a lot of fun tonight looking at these various creatures. I mean, what is it that people are actually seeing? People are seeing creatures all the time, both in the skies and anywhere else. But in the skies, they're also seeing them on the ground as well as creatures coming out of these. Or whether they think what they are seeing is humanoid creatures, but maybe there's something else. Maybe they aren't seeing this, or maybe they are just seeing spaceships. So there's that as well to consider. Definitely there's a lot of strange things and a lot of amazing things people have seen and continue to see. So there's that as well to consider. So what else can I say? Definitely a lot of stuff to see. Trying to think of other stuff to think here and stuff like that. Did I miss anything? Yeah, no. Coming to the end of this live stream, so I get let's have a little more fun let's have a little more fun here, huh? Now, tomorrow I'll probably have even more fun and may have something. Do a lot of good stuff tomorrow. So yeah, please come back tomorrow. We'll have a lot more fun. And as people have said, a lot of people have seen things. All right. Let's see. I'm going to really thank you all for joining me, and please hit that like button. It really helps me fight the algorithm and stuff like that, so more people can see my content, okay? So be sure to do that. And remember, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow and stuff. Let's see. So, yeah, I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me.